viral swim tips. Some of these might be gold, but some might actually make you swim slower or just overcomplicate things. Today we're gonna do something very different. I'm gonna react to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook Reels, which were picked out for me, so I'm going blind here, but perhaps we can learn something from these videos. And just to make things clear, I'm doing this in good faith. I'm sure all of these creators are doing the very best job that they can. So if I'm disagreeing with something or saying something negative, just remember I get things wrong all the time too. I'm Eetu Karvonen and let's react to some viral swimming reels. And first up we have Sterazzo 86. Come on man, same birth year as me, so I'm guessing this Stefano Rosetto guy is the same age as I am. Okay, some freestyle kicking rhythm. And that is almost correct, but unfortunately on this first phase of this video he's doing the kick on the wrong side. Because the mechanics are quite clear. If I'm turned on my right side and I'm applying power or starting my stroke with the right arm, I need to kick down with the same side leg to start the movement sequence of my hips and upper body turning and applying that torque force to that limb on that side. So I don't know where he came up with doing it with the opposite leg. And then this kind of looks made up. Yeah, you can do it like that as well, where you're kicking at the end of your stroke pull, but I would say you're almost automatically too late there. Some sprinters are actually using this kind of kicking rhythm, but I'm kind of having a feeling that Stefano here is doing this video for like intermediate, beginner type swimmers. So unfortunately, I would have to disagree here. Just because if you are not rooting your leg, and by rooting I mean pressurizing the leg, the whole kinetic chain on the same side as you're starting the pull, then the kick will do almost absolutely nothing. And if you're kicking at the end of your pull as the active range of motion, the actual pull is at its end of propulsion production, then that kick does almost absolutely nothing there because the kick is not propulsive, or if it is minimally propulsive, and you want to use the legs in a way that actually amplifies the power production that you can get from the upper body. And next one is by, Mitch Brown. So this is apparently a video on Swim Tech Australia, but I know this guy, this is Mitch Brown. I've checked out his stuff, and he is talking about breaststroke pulling. So let's see what he has to say. Yeah, you should start to feel the water. Okay, so he is talking about not actually bending your arms at the early parts of the pull like in other strokes you would do, but rather going super wide with the arms and then somehow creating propulsion from bringing the arms together from here. That's not necessarily incorrect. I can understand where he's coming from, kind of holding the water and pulling the hips forward while doing that. But the reality is, whether it's butterfly, freestyle, backstroke or breaststroke, your goal should be to produce propulsion in a horizontal line backwards. In breaststroke, this is the hardest thing to do because you are lifting yourself to take a breath, but as well as you can, you should see that your fingers and forearm are pointed backwards, basically as early and for as long period of time as possible. The reason why we are opening up the arms is to put our upper arms or the whole limb into a position that we can actually catch the water. So unfortunately, I have to disagree with Mitch here. Again, there are swimmers like Tatjana Shoemaker. I hope I'm saying her name right, the Olympic champ from 2021. She's kind of doing this style, but I would not teach anybody to hold their arms completely straight until they're like in a T position in the water because there is very little active drag. And in reality, there might be some propulsion that's going backwards when you're doing this with the arms, but most of the force is actually distributed laterally and not taking you forward. Next we have hannahmore.fitness, and I believe this is Hannah Moore, and she is talking about the 3 drills, and she is talking about the 5 drills every beginner swimmer should do. Yeah, basic breathing exercise. I like it. Yeah, going back to swim school. Doing some kicking with the kickboard. Okay, that is an okay exercise, but the problem here for the beginner, the use of the kickboard, because you do not want to introduce another flotation point in your body line as a beginner, because there are 3 things that you need to learn. You need to learn how to balance yourself over the center of your buoyancy, which is in your lungs. That's where the air is. And then everything else kind of rotates around that. And the way to balance yourself, basically to float in the water, is to learn how to manipulate more of your body mass and weight over that center of buoyancy to get the legs up. And now if I introduce a kicking board in front of me, then I'm actually distorting the physics I'm going to need to bodily understand as I'm starting to learn how to swim. So while it might be okay to try to learn the breathing while holding a kickboard like that in front of you, I would just remove the kickboard completely, maybe put on some fins because those help you to give some velocity and make it easier for yourself to balance and learn that breathing while you're actually using your body and not like external help. And the same thing with the one arm stroke using the kickboard. This will distort the early parts of the stroke. But what I really liked about Hannah Moore here was that she was paying attention to that breathing, because breathing should be one of the first things that is introduced for the swimmers, because it usually takes a long time before swimmers become comfortable breathing in the water or at the boundary layer of water and air, and then to actually integrate it into your movements is a very long road ahead. So that's why how I would approach this and how I do approach it is to learn the breathing in a completely isolated fashion, first with the exercises that Hannah was showing here. Of course, you can do some alligator breathing stuff and also some zero kicking with the head turn, etc., etc. And then learn how to use a snorkel while you're working on your arm rhythm, the pulling mechanics, etc., etc. Because holding a kickboard in front, again, it distorts the physic sensations, the sensations that you're looking for, and learning with your body on how to balance yourself and line yourself in the water. And then holding it in front will actually make the arm pull lined up with the surface of the water and not the actual way we want, where our arm is going into the water in line with our body. And next we have Andriy Kolobtsov. I'm sure I am butchering that name, but his handle is @swimsuccess, and let's see what he's talking about. So many swimmers try to build speed and endurance. Okay, so he's saying that you cannot build speed and endurance at the same time. So this is a little bit longer video, so let me check this out.
The short answer is no, because we have fast twitch fibers and slow twitch fibers in our muscles, and you cannot train them both at the same time. You either work for speed or you train for endurance. So the solution to it is to have a proper structure in your training. Idea is to have different blocks from 4 to 8.
Yeah, he is correct in a way. So of course, if you want to maximize your speed development, you do need to specialize at least for the time being on that quality, because there is interference effect between training different qualities at the same time, and at the very least there is opportunity cost. So every time you're not training for, let's say, speed or recovering, so you can adapt better to that stimulus. You are doing something else and thus not helping your speed to develop. And of course, it's the same for the endurance. However, again, as always in these kind of short reels, you have to kind of bluntly state something. So of course you can improve your speed and endurance at the same time up to a very, very high level, because this is exactly what high level swimmers, let's say on a 100-meter specialist and 200 specialists are doing. They are concurrently training speed and endurance at the same time. You just have to make sure that your weekly cycle or your monthly training cycle is created appropriately, where you can recover from both stimuluses and those two opposing qualities are not competing for adaptive resources with each other. So for example, you can hit a speed workout on Mondays and Fridays, and then do endurance on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And this way, the speed workout always comes after a day off. You are fresh, you are ready to hit it fast, and it doesn't really matter if you're slightly fatigued from the speed work on your endurance workout. So almost every swimmer could improve those qualities concurrently at the same time. But of course, if you're like super high level, 50-meter Olympic sprinter type of a guy, then you probably need to scratch all of that speed work. However, what I do agree here, and if you've been watching my channel, you know that I like different phases of training. My whole book is based around that you should really choose only a limited number of qualities to be developed within a 6-week cycle or 8-week cycles. Because if you are trying to do everything at once, you're almost bound to fail. So I think Mr. Andriy, I'm going to try to say that last name again, Kolobtsov, is onto something, but again, we don't really have to be as black and white that you can't do something, because people are proving that to be the case all the time, that you can. And next we have HSK Fitness, and I have never heard about this. Okay, this is just the usual dryland. I'm never going to curse on this channel, but this is just, well, this is just stupid. You see a movement in the dolphin kick, and then you're trying to reproduce a part of it on your dryland and expecting that you will get better at it in the water. So of course, there is a time and a place for this kind of mimicking of your actual swimming motions on dryland, but that should be like 1% or 2% of your dryland workouts. The idea in the gym or when you're training out of the pool is to work the qualities, the physical qualities that you cannot overload effectively in the pool. And mainly that is your basic and maximal strength. Even power development, like doing plyometrics or Olympic lifting, is kind of dubious for swimming, because you are supposed to train your power in the pool, and you don't need resistance that, you can just do sprinting. What you're doing in the gym and dryland is aiming to make your organism, your body, stronger in the muscles and in the movement patterns, the direction of movements that you use in the pool, but only generally. So this does absolutely nothing. Rather, you should be aiming to make your glute, the torso musculature like your abs, lower back, and especially hip flexors, the rectus femoris muscle, stronger in the gym to have higher potential to create power or force in the water. That's what you should be doing on dry land, and then train the dolphin kicks specifically in the pool. Do not try to somehow mimic that movement in the gym and think that something positive happens. Actually, if you try to create all of these resisted movements that somehow resemble swimming on dry land, you might actually be actively making yourself worse. This has been tested by, let's say, baseball players where they're using overweighted bats, or let's say basketball players using heavier balls in order to make their shoots stronger. That doesn't work because you're introducing these minor differences in the movement patterns used with the actual implement weights in that sport. And in swimming, the implement is your body and the environment that you're moving is the water. And once you try to do it in dryland, first of all, the way you are producing force on dryland against solid objects is different than in the pool, so you will never mimic that completely. And there is absolutely no way to reproduce the movement patterns, the techniques, the skills required in swimming. So don't even try. When you go to gym, 98% of your work should be just making your body stronger, and then you can reserve 2% for some other stuff, more experimental, such as this, but that didn't make any sense to me. And next we have Swimming by Sun Yu. Okay, I've actually seen this guy. He has over 1 million followers on YouTube, and he's talking about freestyle pulling and how to hold your fingers. And at first I must say that this, for 95% of you who are watching this, doesn't make any difference. If you never pay attention to your fingers while you're swimming, you can get to a very, very high level. Because as your swimming intelligence, your relationship with the water or the feel of the water develops, you will find the optimal way on how to hold the water. So even before we're gonna check this out to the end, I'll tell you what science says. Science actually suggests that we should keep our fingers slightly open. Because of course, if my fingers are closed or open, the surface area is the same, but apparently when you open up the fingers, there's some kind of turbulences that actually increase the area that you can produce force into the water. I'm not a physicist, so I don't really understand how that happens, but anecdotally, if I just suggest my swimmers to try to find the best way to catch the water, they quite naturally open up their fingers and report back to me that they feel stronger, plus they swim faster. Because any kind of thinking that you apply to your fingers is away from all the other stuff that's happening and is way, way more important. Your balancing, your lining, your rhythm, your mechanics, your horizontal propulsion production, all of that is way more important than how your fingers are. And one of my pet peeves when I'm teaching either swimming teachers or coaches about swimming techniques, and I can see they're paying attention to swimmers' fingers, is to immediately point out that what about the 98% of the swimmer's body that's absolutely more important than what the fingers are doing. And after that long rant, let's see what Mr. Sanyu has to say. So of course, don't deliberately open them too wide. And yeah, you should never cup your hands because then you're actively making the surface smaller. But yeah, this last one of keeping the fingers closed is wrong. And you can quite easily test it out if you have any kind of experience in swimming. Go to the pool and deliberately hold your hand like this and just wave it past the water and feel how the water is actually grabbing into your hand and then slightly open. It will automatically give you the sensation of power and you can really feel the water actually kind of stopping at your palm. So unfortunately, Sanyu is first of all paying attention to the fully wrong thing for most of swimmers and getting it kind of wrong because it is actually better to hold your fingers a bit open. Okay, and then we have Dan Daly. Man, I love his stuff. And he's saying that you can improve with 1 to 2 workouts.
Learning a new skill
because you need more frequent exposures
and deliberate focus. You could be getting better.
Yeah, you can get better with only 5-10 minutes of
after your other workouts. Swimming's easier on the body.
Yeah, swimming is easier for the body.
More frequent sessions.
You can do more frequent
even as you age
sessions.
Give up other types of training. It takes years to improve.
Yeah, and it takes years to improve. So I couldn't agree more. I kind of disagree. I think most swimmers, especially if you're a beginner, you can definitely improve for years and years and years with 1 to 2 practices per week. But of course, if you want to expedite your process, the more often you train, the better your progress will be. And here's why. It's the first 10 to 15 minutes of practice time when your mind is completely fresh, you have no fatigue in your muscles, when your nervous system is kind of primed to learn new skills or let's say refine the skills that you have. And the more often you can do that, the better your results will be. So it doesn't make much sense to train once per week and do 3-hour sessions full of different technical cues for, let's say, all the strokes. If you want to improve your skills, it would be much better to divide that 3-hour practice and let's say do one 15-minute session or 20-minute session on skills every day. And I think one of the ways to really make your swimming better is to go on a vacation where they have a pool at the hotel, which usually isn't very long. Even like a 7-meter pool or 10-meter pool is enough for this. And then do multiple daily sessions of just like 3 to 5 minutes, but intensely only paying attention, deliberately focusing on one skill at a time. So very good stuff by Dan Daly here, and you definitely should follow him. He's usually on point on everything. And then we have Mr. Steve Cole, who is freaking jacked. Is he a swimmer? I don't know. I want to look like that. And of course he's talking about muscle building through swimming. Okay, and he's saying that water is resistance. That is correct. And the harder you are pulling the water, there's thick resistance. Yeah. Okay, it's kind of a long video again, but his whole premise is kind of right, but at the same time is wrong. If somebody wants to build muscle, would I tell them to go swim and expect great results? Of course, if their exercise regime has been a few steps from the couch to the fridge to get some snacks while watching movies, then yes, if you start swimming, there's going to be some resistance and you're challenging your muscles in new ways, and some muscle building or hypertrophy might be the result of that. But after like few months of training, there will be almost no muscle building happening from swimming. This is one of those things where we're looking at the best swimmers in the world and thinking that there's a way to get this so-called swimmer's body through swimming. Well, first of all, almost all of the elite athletes that you see in Olympics or World Championships in swimming, they are doing gym training and they are doing this strength training for particular muscles that you use in swimming, mainly the back muscles, the triceps, the chest, if they're breaststrokers, maybe for their quads. But anyways, it is the hypertrophy, the building of those muscles that gives you this V-taper or swimmer's body, not the swimming. And another fact is that, so if you see a massive sprinter like Florent Manodou or somebody like that, you always got to remember that most people, it doesn't matter how much they go to the gym or swim, will never be able to accrue that much muscle, because that's one of the reasons why he is one of the best sprinters of all time. He has the genetics to actually build this much muscle while still being able to swim effectively. So yes, of course, any kind of exercise at first is effective at changing your body composition, building muscle and burning fat. But after a few months, you really need to go to the gym to see any noticeable difference in your muscle size. And then we have the last one, Swim Coach Me. So it doesn't say the name of this individual. Okay, and she's showing the classic zipper drill for freestyle. And yeah, it's an okay drill, but my question is, what is it teaching you? It is teaching you the most unnatural, unnecessarily skill in swimming of lifting your elbow high, which puts your shoulder in a position that's vulnerable for injury. And in good swimming, your goal is to actually use the end point of your stroke to gather as much momentum into the arm and swing it out in whatever kind of shape it just comes through it naturally. And You can check out the elite swimmers. Almost nobody does high elbow, at least as exaggerated as it's shown on this video. So yeah, it's like a good proprioception control exercise, but it doesn't really teach you anything about good swimming. So that's it. Pretty solid advice on some of the videos. Some of them were kinda done only for social media because it looks good, and I completely understand. We all need to come up with good content. And if you would like me to react to more viral videos, just comment down below which video you would like me to see to do that. And don't forget to subscribe. And if you're interested in taking your swimming to another level, check out my one-on-one coaching. Link is down below, and I will see you on the next video.